button here. And here we go. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac. And today's a fun day for me. I'm sitting with Evan Chandler, who you may know as Slynk. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up? Not bad.
This is a fun one for me. You know, I've been watching your stuff for years, and we just recently ran into each other at Loop. And so this is like a cool kind of like weird, like seeing you in your, especially because you're in the same situation as you are in your videos. It's like jumping inside the computer program or something.
Like YouTube has a new feature now, and you can just like talk directly to me.
Right. But it's really cool to get a chance to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, for sure. Likewise, dude.
Yeah, big fan of your work. You've done a lot of really awesome tutorials. Your music is really fun. And yeah.
I remember like, because I've heard your name and I've seen your name around a bit, and I remember kind of just seeing a few things on Reddit or just some Ableton forum posts about racks and stuff, and I think I downloaded a couple of your racks like way back in the day to mess around with. I might have seen some of your videos actually, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I remembered your name. I was like, oh, AfroDJMac, what up?
Yeah, it's
you
cool.
don't have an afro though.
No, I get told things like that all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
That's funny. Funny you might have seen it on Reddit. I'm actually banned on Reddit for the Ableton Live thread for posting free racks. I guess
which subreddit? The Ableton Live subreddit or Ableton?
I think it's like Ableton Live. It's one of the two, I guess.
Because there's two, and one of them's pretty toxic and the other one's pretty sweet.
Oh, okay.
And I think Ableton is the good one and Ableton Live is like the toxic one.
All right. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, like EDM production is pretty, I don't know, there's a lot of noobs and stuff in there. But occasionally I come across a good tutorial. I'm a subscriber on all those Reddits, and whenever I see some question I think I can answer, I try to help.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much if you're banned.
I'm not. I mean, I was never deep into Reddit anyway. That was the first kind of experience I ever had with it. And then I realized I was banned, and I was like, all right, the hell with that.
That's bizarre that they would ban you for sharing free racks. Like,
I think they deemed it like promotional stuff. So
yeah,
it's okay. I still sleep pretty well at night, believe it or not.
For sure.
So maybe just to start us off, to get us going on some things, can you give us a little bit of your background, some of the stuff you're doing, and where you came from, how you came up into this world that you now find yourself in?
Yeah. I just found myself in this spot. Hey, it's kind of strange.
I make it sound easy, right?
No, it's pretty weird. I still am like, holy shit, I do this for a job. But I guess I grew up, my dad, he was really into music. He's still into music. He's a bit of an audiophile. He's got tube amps and UFO looking turntables, and he buys the same record 3 times made by different manufacturers and compares them and shit like that.
Wow.
And so I grew up listening to like music and stuff through him, and that's kind of where I get some of my music taste from. I know one of his best friends really liked funk music, like Diana Ross and Earth, Wind and Fire and stuff like that. And Dad likes all kinds of music. He likes the Beastie Boys, Led Zeppelin, you know, all kinds of crazy different music. He just loves music for music. And anyway, I did some piano lessons when I was a kid, but I kind of got bored of that. And then I remember when I was like 15 years old, one of my brother's friends gave me a cracked version of, what was it called? Rebirth, made by Propeller Heads.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 oscillators, 2 303s or something like that, and then 2 808s. And it was like a step sequencer, and you could like program your own songs. And I loved it. I goofed around with that for a long time. And before that, my dad bought me a PlayStation game called Music, and then the sequel, Music 2000. And it was kind of like a really rudimentary digital audio workstation. Like you just put the Lego blocks in and you could make your own song.
Nice.
And you could even sample CDs. You only had like 10 seconds that you could sample. But I remember sampling an old Cassius CD. I think it was their album 99 or Cassius 1999. Anyway, that interest continued. Someone gave me a cracked version of Fruity Loops 2.4 or something. And simultaneous to this interest, I was also interested in DJing. I got Tractor and I started DJing. My first gig was at this like down the stairs under the ground cafe, which was below a theater. And like hoity-toity people would go to the theater and then come downstairs for a drink and a pizza. It was like a cafe kind of Italian restaurant. And I was DJing there. And at the time, I wanted to be a drum and bass DJ. So when I rolled up to this gig, I'm like, well, I can't really play drum and bass. So I kind of went back to my like roots of like funk music and stuff and hip hop that samples that funk music, and started exploring that more and more. And then I got Ableton and I thought, what if I took a hip hop a cappella and put it over the top of a funk song? Then it's like two songs at once. And then I started playing them out and they were really resonating with the dance floor. And then I thought, these drums aren't as punchy as some of the other songs I play. So what if I put some drums in there too? What if I update the bass line, make a fat bass line? Why stop with 2 songs? Why not sample 4 or 5 songs? And then next thing you know, I've got an EP coming out on Good Groove Records. And and then that same year, they booked me to play Shambhala at the Fractal Forest. And it was my first time going overseas. And it was my first time playing a festival. And ever since that point, that was really the turning point, because I'd started getting booked lots around Canada and more internationally. Like I was DJing around Australia a bit. I'd fly to Sydney and Melbourne and stuff. But now I was going to Canada and Europe and stuff like that. And anyway, now I'm here in Canada talking to you.
Well, that's exciting. I like the progression where it's sort of like you almost fell into producing in a way where you just kind of, oh, what if I put these songs together? Well, maybe it needs more drums, maybe it needs more bass, and
yeah,
all of a sudden you're a producer.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it happened quickly, but it was like over the course of like 10 years. And I think, yeah, my curiosity of just like listening to songs and thinking, how did they do that? How did they make that sound? Specifically like Daft Punk. I used to listen to lots of Daft Punk. And I thought like, how do they make those subtle changes in the sounds of the bass line? And I would often like try to emulate those sounds and try and like remake those sounds. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any other plans after school. I was just like working at some fast food restaurant, and after work I'd goof around on my computer making music. And my dad was like, you should get a real job and you know, what are you doing? Move out.
Right. Yeah, I guess that comes from all parents, even the audiophile parents.
Yeah, but now he's like, obviously he takes my job a little bit more seriously, and he seems to be pretty proud of me. And I send him my songs, and we talk about the loudness war and that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's pretty interesting, actually. Like me and my dad have both influenced each other quite a lot throughout our lives, because he kind of like got me into music indirectly, not like here's a copy of Ableton or anything, but just him being interested in music. I kind of got interested in music. in the same way, when I was a kid, I kind of got into remote control cars, and I bought a remote control car, and me and my dad were like goofing around with it in the driveway and stuff. And then something happened to my dad, and he just went crazy with it and started building his own remote control cars. And he turned his whole like workshop, which used to be a photo developing studio, into a remote control car studio. And he's
Wow.
like charging batteries and all this. And then we'd go out to like race meets and like race remote control cars. Then he became the president of that club.
Oh,
And
wow.
now, for a living to this day, he repairs transponders, which are like the little things you put on the car, and then when they drive past the finish line, it like tracks on the computer how fast your lap time was and stuff. And he's like one of two people in the world that repairs those things. And he
Really?
just figured out how to repair it himself.
Oh, that is cool. And
Yeah.
that's because you got into remote control cars one day. And
Yeah, it's crazy. So we
hmm,
both kind of like shaped each other's lives a little bit.
that's cool. I mean, you hear often of like parents influencing their children, directly or indirectly, but
Yeah.
less so the children influencing the parents.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really strange when you look back on how things have turned out.
Oh yeah, I think about that all the time, and it's a lot of things that didn't make sense to me at a younger age. Suddenly, I'm like, oh, okay, and now I kind of understand why I'm here or why this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Nice. So, you've getting into producing music, but you've also like made a pretty good name of yourself too, doing tutorials and teaching people. And that's how I found you first, because I spend ungodly amounts of time searching for tutorials and new
So do
tricks and
I, yeah.
techniques.
Yeah, well then you know as well as I do that there's a lot of garbage tutorials out there that start something like, "What's up, guys? Make sure you smash that like, subscribe button. Make sure you check out my Patreon and follows every
Yeah,
watch this." And then it's like 5 minutes of fluff and then 3 minutes of actual content, and then the video's over.
yeah,
And it's so frustrating. I just want someone to, oh, and then there's the flip side of that, the tutorials where it's like step one, click this button, step two, click this button, step three, set that knob to this. It's like, okay, but why?
right, right.
And what does it sound like between step one and step two? What does it sound like between step two and step three? Teach me why.
Yeah,
And that was one thing that was really frustrating for me watching tutorials. And like as I would follow along with the tutorials, like a sound design tutorial or whatever, I would like end up just diverting completely from the path and go somewhere else with it. Because I'm like, but when you move that, it sounds cool. And this guy isn't moving that one knob. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I just thought I could make a tutorial that shows off certain techniques, and then also not limit you to the one technique that I'm showing you. The video is more than that. Like it's it shows you many paths you could take,
right.
fractal of paths. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, I see that in your videos too, where they're not just kind of like you said, like sometimes they're like, all right, in order to make a bass sound or whatever, you have to turn this knob to this number and this number and that number. And there's no
Yeah.
explanation of like what that knob even is. It's just this knob turned to 12 and just,
Yeah.
but,
And there's no explanation.
but you do a nice job in like kind of showing how these things happen and like what you can do with it. And that's something I always liked about your work, is that it's not just like here's how you get the sound, but like here's some fun you can have with it. And
Yeah.
so it's not just like, okay, now I know how to make one sound, but now I know how to take that idea and apply it to other things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it kind of just started as a hobby. And actually I saw some Mr. Bill tutorials,
Hmm.
and his videos kind of inspired me to do a couple videos. Some of my early videos, um, before I knew how to edit and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I just thought I'd throw up a video and see what happened, and it got lots of attention. And so I thought maybe I'll do another one. Maybe I'll
Mm.
do another one. And then, like I don't make like money, like much money on the ad revenue, but it's like a nice little amount of pocket money to cover my Netflix account or whatever.
Yeah. Soften the
So
blow of the bills a little.
yeah, but I more enjoy it because my theory has always been like when you teach something, then you learn it better yourself.
Yeah.
And so I try to do videos on things that I don't know so much about. And then when I set out to do a video like that, I end up just learning everything there is to know about that one specific thing and the surrounding things as well. And so it's helped me take my own knowledge to the next level as well. So yeah,
Same exact thing happened with me. And
right.
in music and also in my day job is a high school English teacher.
Mm,
So you I mean, there were days where I'd teach like grammatical things and I'm like, I don't know anything about that. So you learn it inside and out, and with music production, a lot of the videos that I made early on were just kind of explaining the racks I was making.
yeah.
And I never thought of myself as someone that knew how to use any software really. I just knew how to do this one thing. But as I did it more and more, that was what was teaching me.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like, oh, I actually do kind of know a thing or two now.
Yeah. Yeah. You start thinking like, hey, I, I kind of know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah, I can answer questions. This is cool. Or sometimes
Yeah.
like something new comes out, some new device or a new pack or something, I'll explore it for this sort of for the purpose of the tutorial, but wind up realizing like, oh, I got to learn this and I got to figure this out, and takes me
Yeah.
to a new place.
Yeah. Totally. You ever do a video and then put like some small error like in the video and then every single comment is like, you messed up that one thing.
Yeah, you get that, right? That's a fun game, I
Oh
guess, for
man.
people to play. Like, nope, that's not right. Don't.
Yeah, like my newest video about my experience at Ableton Loop, in the captions I spelt someone's name wrong. I put an A instead of an O, and
Yeah.
there's like 7 comments of people calling me out. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can't change the video now. Like I'm not a perfect human being.
Right.
But
There
people are just trying to make sure the information is correct. I've
mm,
actually learned a lot from the comments too. Like
mm,
I did a video about sidechain and how to sidechain stuff correctly and stuff like that. And then someone left me a comment, which basically totally, I was just like, oh my God, I never thought of doing it like that. And now I totally do all my sidechains like that. Like, so in
mm.
the sidechaining video, I had an operator just playing a short click. And then that was on one channel. And then I had some racks which were pre-linked to that click. And then I would just copy paste the racks to different like bass channels or whatever. So that anytime that click was triggered with a MIDI clip, it would trigger the sidechain, right? This guy's comment was use a drum rack, and then you can have a click for the kick and the snare, and you can set the thresholds and ratios and stuff differently for the kick and the snare. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? That's brilliant.
Yeah. That is a
Yeah.
good idea.
So I definitely learned a lot. Another example actually is on the Quintuplet swing tutorial. I think, I was like Googling around trying to find more about the science behind swing, and I found some article or something talking about quintuplet swing, and then someone in the comments of that video said you should check out septuplet swing. It's the same thing, but more divisions. And I was like, oh. And then I thought you could just pick any number. Like it doesn't have to be 5 counts in the space of what would normally be 4 counts. It could be 7 or 11 or any number really. And really that kind of opened my eyes to like the whole world of swing,
Hmm.
just cutting up a portion of time into as many segments as you desire.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess like triplet is kind of the standard, right?
Yeah, it's like triplet or 4/4, right?
Yeah. And I remember watching that video of yours actually on the septuplet. And I was like, what? Like
Yeah.
that was one where I was just kind of like, really? Like, and that's a topic I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about because I think your
Okay.
music is like really like groovy in the terms of like it really moves, you know, it doesn't feel computerized. It feels very like human and
Mm.
maybe even human isn't, I guess, because like I say human, it almost implies like not perfect, like, but um it's got,
Organic or something.
yeah, it's got this like life to it, and
Yeah.
it never feels like someone just plugged in like on their sequencer and just really
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, boring computerized. um and I did watch some of the webinar you just did with live producers with Dan the other day, and it's funny too because I've just been talking with him a bit.
I know we were talking about how you just did a podcast, and I
Yeah.
was like saying maybe I'll start a podcast and then I'll get you guys on it.
Yeah, that would be great.
And then we can just do like a 3-way podcast all in a circle.
Right. Yeah, but like you talk a bit, and you're pretty big advocate of like using grooves, it seems like,
Yeah.
inside of live.
Yeah, I do. So,
What's the secret, man? How does your music move like that?
well, I didn't know what I was doing for a long time, and then I was listening to some hip hop tracks, and this one song by Jay-Z, I think it was the New York song.
Mm.
Yeah, New York.
Mm-hmm.
There's the drum loop at the start of that is banging, and I sampled it, and I was like trying to use it in some mashup or something like that, but like nothing was like matching. Everything sounded like it was out of time because drum had it grew. So I thought, well, Ableton has a feature where you can like extract the groove.
Mm.
So I right clicked on it, extract groove, and then I started using that groove, and it wasn't a perfect, like it was hard to line things up perfectly with that groove because the MIDI notes were sitting halfway between grid lines. So when you zoom in and try to line something up perfectly with it, you kind of just eyeballing it. It wasn't like exact. So I adjusted the groove slightly so that it was sitting on a grid line. I think it's a 1/28th, a 128th division grid line, you know, in between 2/64ths or something like that.
Yeah, some ludicrous division.
And I think it's almost a quintuplet swing just by chance.
Oh yeah.
It's almost, it's very close to a quintuplet swing. And I started just like applying that groove to like my drums and my bass line and all the percussion and everything in the entire song, basically.
Mm.
And then I do like bass chops with one shots, and I visually line them up using the groove MIDI clip as a guide to like visually line up those hits. And it was just sounding really funky and stuff, especially at like my main kind of tempo, which is like 110 BPM. And pretty much I've used that groove for like almost every single song I've written.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It works because if I am doing a DJ set and I play one of my old songs and then play one of my new songs, the groove is the same. So they beat match and sync up perfectly.
Right.
And I'm not saying people who are listening to this that you should absolutely do that and use the same groove for everything. I'm just telling you what I did.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that kind of gives my music a little bit of a human, organic, non-GMO sort of feel. But the other factor that ties in with that is that when I'm making my drum loops and percussion layers and stuff like that, I always have like a big kick and a big snare. And I call that like the meat of the drums because it is the meat of the drums. It's biggest, most powerful part of the track, right? The drums, the kick, the snare, the driving force, right? And then everything else is kind of just like to complement that. And I would always sample like drum breaks from old funk songs, and the ones that I would sample, I would always look for like drum samples that had like some character to it. That had like someone in the background going, yeah, or just like some offbeat clap sound, or just some ambient reverby kind of room sound in the groove, in the loop. And so side chaining that to my kick and snare, I end up losing all the transients of the kick and snares that are in the actual loop, but retaining that character and the realness of an actual drum kit or whatever that's being played. And the little like ghost hits and little rattles and stuff in between the main kick snare kind of thing. So that's what gives my drum like that organic kind of soybean feel. Vegetarian, I don't know. Yeah.
100% natural.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea, because you kind of like cancel out the actual like impact of those drums, but you're when it comes back in, you get all that kind of background stuff. That's something I think a lot of music needs, you know, when you're inside the box, there's no anything, there's no room, especially if you're using just samples or virtual instruments. There's no world that this ever happened in. And if I record my guitar, it's the room. You get that, and there's like a life behind it. And, and it's one of the things, and I've found that like, and I'm not a super crazy sampler like that or anything, but it's the feeling it gives you sometimes more than the actual musical content. The just sensation that it's happening somewhere and it's got this life. There's the people are there all of a sudden. Instead of nothing.
I've sampled lots of just kind of clapping and stuff. Like one thing I've sampled a lot is there's an a cappella for Love Shack by the B-52s.
Yeah.
And at the start of the a cappella, there's just like this crowd of clapping people, like, yeah, come on, kind of thing. And then it's if you see a, you know, faded sign at the side of the road.
Yeah, right.
So I cut that first part and just looped it because it just had so much atmosphere and feeling. And, you know, you layer that quietly under your drums and it kind of works. And there's another one that I sampled a lot in the past. It's a song by, let me just look it up real quick. I got it on my computer here. Chop that. Yeah, Miles Benjamin, Chop That Wood. It's a crazy song. You got to check it out. But
make a note of that.
Yeah, I found the a cappella and similar thing, just the atmosphere, the clapping before the lyrics begin in the a cappella. I just sample the beginning and the song's pretty cool as well. But yeah.
You're capturing like the party in the studio around the song.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you can kind of emulate that yourself, but it's not authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I have done, I have recorded that kind of atmosphere type thing that I was describing just now with Megan Hamilton and the Bermudas. I did a track with them and I was actually in Minneapolis in their studio and we were having a few drinks and I thought, hey, let's write a song because the Bermudas are there and, you know, this guy plays bass guitar, this guy plays guitar, this guy's got a little trumpet and he plays keys as well. And Megan Hamilton's a singer and a rapper. So I thought, let's get busy here. And I kind of just put the microphone on, hit record, and I was like, let's just clap and kind of joke around and stuff.
Make the beginning of Love Shack.
Yeah, exactly. And it turned out really good. We recorded a few layers and then I layered them up and kind of had them repeating and yeah. So
It sounds like you're giving me a good excuse to go socialize with some of my friends just to get the recording.
Right.
I got a reason to
What's
leave my house.
what's socializing? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I,
Someone, I always hear this at festivals. Like, I forget who said it first, but never trust a producer with a tan.
right, because you're always indoors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
never trust a
you're
producer
a
with a tan.
producer. Why are you getting so much sun?
Are you a producer, or do you have a ghost producer?
Yeah, it's true, and that's something like I deal with a little bit like in the summertime. Like I have a lot of time in the summer as a teacher, and there's that that feeling, to just want to be outside and to have to like be in the house and like see the sun shining and it's always this like kind of like two things pulling me in different directions.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'll
I don't
actually take the laptop outside and you know get a
really.
get a seat or something.
Yeah, I I just don't go outside. I mean, this is Vancouver, right? It rains like all the time.
Uh-huh.
In the summer, it is pretty nice. So usually in the summer, I'm like out playing festivals and stuff like that. But in the wintertime, from like September, October, all the way through to like April, May, yeah, all the way through to May, I'm just kind of like in the studio
I
because
think
it's kind
it's
of gross outside. It's like raining and stuff.
mm,
So it's a good excuse to just stay inside and write music and goof around.
yeah, I sometimes get excited for a rainy summer day for that reason. It's like, oh, good. I'm not missing out on like a nice day out, going to the beach or something.
I've never
Just,
been to New York. Is it like nice there? Does it snow in New York?
yeah, yeah. I don't think as much as it does in Vancouver, probably. But
Doesn't snow that much in Vancouver. You
no,
get like an inch a year. Yeah.
really. Oh, we get a lot more than that. New York has a really nice summer. It's great, beautiful, humid, but very nice. Fall's pretty nice too, but it does get pretty cold and a little dark. Right, like it's dark now. It's 4:45, and
Yeah.
we do get snow. Yeah, we get the blizzard or two in the winter. We get like a couple feet, and then
Oh, damn.
we had snow right before Thanksgiving, which is a little unusual, but we got a couple inches, 4 inches maybe or so.
Maybe that's why I don't care so much about going outside because I grew up in Australia and it's like even in winter it's still kind of summer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Uh
It's just like summer and then not as summer. That's all
huh.
those seasons we got.
Yeah.
And it's so hot. And if you don't have air conditioning, you literally melt.
Hmm.
I've like I remember like preparing for like winter tours in Canada. And I'm just like in my studio. There's a fan. I've got a towel on the back of my chair to like wipe my hands off on. I'm not wearing a shirt and I've got like a Mr. spray bottle here. And I'm just like, got to finish this remix. It's like so hot in Australia.
Yeah, I have a lot of family in Florida, so it's the summer for them is sort of like the winter for us in New York because you don't really go out much in the winter, and in the
Yeah, yeah,
summer down
exactly.
there, you don't want to be outside. It's just
I know. I'm going to Australia like on I leave on Wednesday next week and it's December. So it's like the hottest part of the year.
uh-huh.
It's gonna be hot. I
Yeah,
gotta
I could imagine. I'd
I
love
gotta follow the air conditioning.
yeah. Yeah, I'd love to check it out down there sometime. That's
It is cool, but don't go in like December or January.
hmm,
Go in like April.
okay. Good advice.
Yeah.
You're going
Yeah.
out there to play a little bit, right?
Yeah. I got 5 or 6 shows, I think, playing a festival in Melbourne and then the infamous Breakfest in Perth on New Year's Eve slash day. New Year's Day, I think it is. And then a couple of club shows, Hobart, Brisbane, um, Coffs Harbour.
Nice.
I think there's one other, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, mostly it's just like good timing because I can go home and hang out with my family for Christmas, and it's my
Yeah.
grandma's birthday
Oh,
in
nice.
December.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, she's turning 90.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
she's
big one.
old.
Nice.
She actually also has a huge record collection. My dad has a CD collection and a modest record collection,
Hmm.
but he has like a cabinet that goes from like the ceiling to the wall, to the floor, to the window. No. And it's like, this big, full of CDs, alphabetical order. He's got a labeler and he's like put every label, and he also has every single CD ripped to FLAC on a hard drive, which is connected to like his router and his Sonos system. So he can carry around this like um, iPad looking thing and listen to music in any room of the house.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he's nuts. And yeah, so my
Nice.
grandma has like a pretty big record collection. It's all terrible music though. It's like grandma music, But she also has a a pianola. Do you know what a pianola is?
No.
It's one of those pianos that has like pedals, and you pump the pedals, and you like open these doors in the front, and you pick a scroll, and you like put the scroll in and attach it to like the hook, and the
Oh.
um the pedals kind of move the scroll, and then there's like wind blowing through, and when the wind can blow through one of the holes that's punched out on the scroll, it like auto presses a key on the piano.
Wow.
So it's like super old technology, and she's got a huge wall of scrolls, just hundreds of scrolls of different songs.
That's a
And I
piano
remember,
roll, right? Like that's where we
yeah,
get the
piano roll,
terminology,
right?
right?
It is a piano roll. Yeah, never thought about it like that, but that's totally, it's like a vertical piano roll.
It's MIDI.
Yeah, it is MIDI, dude. It's like 1950s MIDI.
Hmm. Well, that's got to be kind of fun to play with. Does
Yeah,
it change speed depending on how fast you're pumping your feet?
yeah. If
Yeah.
you pump your feet real quick, then it plays faster. And yeah, me and my brother used to goof around with it when we were kids. I'd be like I was too short to sit on the piano seat and push the pedals. So I would like be on my knees pushing it with my hands, and I'd try and do it as fast as I could. And my brother would be pretending to play,
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, what kind of shows are you doing? Are you about your live performances? Is it a DJ set? Is it something like would you say like a controllerist type of deal, or how does that?
Well,
What is your performance? I'll ask you that question. So,
right now I'm just DJing, Serato, turntables,
mhm.
mixer, laptop. Um, I kind of like I kind of look at myself as more of a producer than a DJ, even though like I can scratch and mix pretty well. I feel like my strength is like producing. And so when I'm approaching a set to play live, I'll like plan it out in Ableton, and I'll just like drop songs in that I like and then edit them, add drums, basically do what I used to do in that underground cafe, except all in one giant project with like 300 channels.
Mhm.
And I'll just make remixes and edits directly in that project until I have like a whole set. And then I'll kind of render each Lego piece out, and there'll be like run ins and run outs and samples I can scratch, and I'll come up with little routines, and then I'll just go out and perform it on the decks.
Mm.
Um, but I have, yeah, so that's why I don't play requests.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I have done a controllerist type set before. Last summer, I did a talkbox set.
Hmm.
And so I would take this keyboard, just this little MIDI keyboard. I used to have an MPC 1000, but I sold that. But I have like now like a MIDI fighter looking thing, and my talkbox with the tube and whatnot, and my Motu ultralight AVB. And I take that all out, plus the turntables, and mixer, and I'd connect it all up. And rather than playing all the songs in Serato, I would push spacebar on the Ableton set, and it would play through. And at certain moments, I would finger drum the bass lines or scratch in an acapella, and then I would also like play the keyboard into my mouth and then have a microphone and like talkbox
Hmm.
perform the lyrics. And I even worked out a way to connect my turntable to the talkbox so I could scratch a sound on the record. That sound would travel through the tube into my mouth, and then I would modulate that sound by moving my mouth,
Hmm.
and then that would get picked up by the microphone back into Ableton, compressed, EQ'd out to the master. Called it the talkbox scratch.
I've never seen
Kind of
that done
sounds,
before.
yeah, I don't think many people have done it before, but it was really fun. And yeah, so I tried out that set. I think I did it like 5 times, but it always stressed me out so much because there's so much that can go wrong. I've got
Yeah.
all these cables. I got to bring a suitcase of gear, and any little thing could go wrong. And I just found myself kind of stressing too much about it. So I've kind of gone back to just DJing where it's a little bit more easygoing.
Hmm.
I do all the work in the studio, and then when I'm performing, it's just like high fiving people and have a sip of beer and then do a little scratch. And it's a little bit more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I already kind of have like, I always have a lot of nerves. I've never been like that. Yeah, fuck it. Like, whatever. Oh,
Right.
I'm on in 5 minutes. No big deal kind of thing. I'm like on stage an hour before my set, making sure everything's perfect and
Mhm.
just like trying to calm myself down backstage. So, you know,
Right. Well, I imagine that's probably a good thing in a way because it forces you to prepare. That's really, I guess,
yeah,
the only way to deal with that kind of stuff is being prepared. And
yeah.
I know for myself, like if I'm underprepared, then I feel really stressed about a performance. I had
Oh,
that
totally.
experience over the summer where I was playing at a retro gaming expo, of all places. My friend does this Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and it's this huge event with like old school video games, and there's also like a tabletop gaming portion, and there's a ton of people there, but they're not really there to see the music. The music is just sort of like the afterthought. So I had this like 8-bit set that I
Right.
was trying to get done for this thing, and I was writing all the songs right up until that day when I had to go. And truthfully, the songs weren't really completely written by the time I was there. It was kind of improv-y, kind of just saying whatever came out of my mouth. I had loose melodies and ideas, but oh man, I stressed it so much. And while I was performing, I just felt terrible. I,
Yeah.
I really did. And I recorded it, listened back, and I was like, it actually is a lot better than I thought it was. And especially considering that people weren't really watching too closely, they were kind of hanging out playing
Yeah.
video
Yeah.
games. But because of the kind of lack of preparedness, I had a miserable time.
Yeah, man. It's tough for me. Like if I feel the same way. Like even when I am fully prepared, I just I just get real nervous for some reason. Um I can't it's I don't know. I feel like it's kind of getting worse actually.
Hmm.
Um
As
and
the
I think it's
shows
kind
get
of,
bigger.
yeah, the shows get bigger. Um but also like I feel like the last set I did was so epic that this set isn't going to be as good or better than that one.
Hmm.
And so I just worry that like people are going to think like, ah,
He's
this isn't
losing
so
it.
good. Can't believe I wasted my money on this gig or whatever.
uh,
But I don't know. It's tough. And like, so yeah, I guess I just try to keep things as simple as possible, and I try to have fun.
hmm.
Every time though, like when I'm before the set, I'm stressing out, blah, blah, blah. But once I get 3 or 4 songs in, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dancing and throwing tomahawks and fist bumping and playing the air piano, all the classic DJ moves, and people losing their mind. I always end up having a good time. So I
You know,
don't know why I worry about it.
there's definitely this like feedback loop that happens, and what I just mentioned was the negative feedback loop where you get the bad
Yeah,
thought and you get another one, and it just adds up.
yeah,
But if you can, whenever I can get in the mood of like this is gonna be great or I'm having a good time, and I get into it and enjoy myself, it always goes better. And
totally. I
the,
agree with that.
the
Like,
enthusiasm is contagious.
yeah, I really actually feed off of the crowd and their energy.
Hmm.
I'm like a mirror on the stage, you know, and it reminds me of like last time I went to Australia, which was earlier this year. And New Zealand. I played a show in Auckland, and I'd been to Auckland a few times throughout the years, and I have a few friends over there. And some of when I got to Auckland, some of my old Brisbane friends had moved to Auckland, and I didn't know that, and they were there too. And there was like this crew of friends that I had, and the club was really filling up before my set, and I was just feeling so good. I ended up playing like the best set ever. It was the same set that I'd played
Yeah,
the rest of the tour, but I just felt better about
yeah,
it.
I gotcha.
And then, yeah, when I finished the set, some girl asked me to marry her, and I was like, I don't really know you. That'd be We shouldn't rush into anything."
Yeah. That's a good judge of a set, I guess, right?
Yeah,
It's funny, like I always played in bands, my whole life up until I started getting into this stuff. And
true.
when you're playing in a band, it's different every time. You're the tempos are different. Everything can be different. Um, but when you play music out of your computer, the electronic music, it's so much more consistent. And the
Yeah,
funny thing that's really occurred to me is that I can play that same thing, like you said, the same set. And
yeah,
it's amazing how much the room, the crowd, the people, and my own mindset has to do with the way I feel the show went. And it's like, well, it's the same damn thing. Shouldn't it just be
yeah,
the same every time?
totally.
But
I
there's,
actually feel like, the crowd is somewhat a mirror as well,
yeah,
and if I'm tired and I just, like, get on stage and I just kinda put my head down and play the set, then the crowd kinda just puts their head down and sort of just, you know
yeah.
but, if I'm up on stage going nuts, then they will go nuts too.
Hmm.
This is how it works. It's weird like that.
Yeah. In my day, I've definitely enjoyed live acts that maybe even I didn't even like the music that much, but it's like, look at how much fun they're having up there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, yeah,
totally.
I could get into this.
Yeah,
They're selling like a fun vibe, and that's good enough.
that's part of the show too, eh?
Yeah, that's why you go, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you could put it on and in your home and, you know, not have to deal with the all the social aspects.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, maybe one day I'll get back into the talkbox thing if I can figure out a way to just make things simpler
Yeah.
rather than building an Ableton set and bringing my sound card and talkbox and everything. Maybe the way forward is to buy like a standalone synth, and then I can just have my laptop as um only turntables Serato, and it's like two independent systems.
Right.
And then I can just like play the talk box. But I don't know. Kind of think like if I'm bringing all this gear, I don't want to just do it once or twice or do like 10 minutes of that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It has to be like a part of the whole set. But I was talking to um, some of my friends that perform a little bit more with stuff, like my friend Caleb. He's got a guitar and um, kind of a trigger pad thing, and he runs a Ableton set, stands up on the boxes and plays the guitar,
Cool.
wearing like a sequin hood thing or something. Um, he only maybe does the guitar thing like 2 or 3 times during his set, and he's just like, it's still cool if you do it once or twice.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I know people like the talk box, but I'm a little out of practice now too.
sure. There's that. Yeah, I'd like to see you doing the scratching thing. Maybe that's a good
The
video.
talk box
Yeah,
scratch.
that's a cool idea.
It is pretty cool, I gotta admit.
I'm not even sure what that would sound like. So,
It's kind of annoying though, like having a microphone on stage in a club,
mhm.
like not necessarily a live music venue or whatever. It's like a club and you've got like giant subs left and right of you with like giant wedges left and right of you and they're blasting you. It's hard to like incorporate a live microphone into that situation unless, I don't know, those wireless mics that they give you when you're like doing the set, they don't seem to feed back or anything. So I don't know if I'm just bad at figuring out the details
Hmm.
with microphones and stuff, but I had a lot of problems using this microphone and feedback.
Yeah.
I bought like in ears and just turned all the monitors off and stuff.
Microphone feedback is really a pain in the ass. And I use a mic live when I play. And
How do you do it? What kind of microphone do you use? Like, how do you mix it and do you roll
um
off the low ends? Tell me,
yeah,
teach
yeah.
me.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. I definitely use a dynamic mic, like a 58 type of mic, Shure 58. Um, I use a wireless now though. It's an SM58 wireless system, but I have a Heil capsule, and it's just their microphone version of a 58 really. Um,
Okay.
just I like the sound of it. I have a friend that's like a really strong believer of their stuff, and he kind of convinced me to get one. That's the mic I'm talking into now too. It's a Heil as well. Um,
Oh,
but
okay.
but I do roll off the lows, and that helps
Yeah.
for the mix too. I mean, I don't need any real low voice going, so
Right.
I probably
Right.
cut 200 hertz and below off of that. Um, I'll I usually have a gate, but I don't put the gate all the way down to infinity because then things get cut off, on your
Yeah.
voice. So I probably have it at about like -20. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
I might even have two of those in a row.
Are you talking about like the bottom of the gate when it actually activates? It
Yeah,
goes down to
when the
negative
gate
20?
exactly. So rather when the gate closes, instead of going to infinity, so you don't hear
Yeah.
anything, it just lowers it to -20.
So what about your threshold then?
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe I have two gates, so it's not as intense. Or maybe it's yes, I think I did two where the threshold is really, I'm trying to get the threshold just above the volume of the music coming out of the speakers.
Yeah.
And I lower it a little bit. So maybe I do like -10. I gotta look now, but I think I do -10 and then another one. So with -10
Hmm.
to kind of like catch the other end, so it's not as extreme.
Yeah.
Um, so I do that. Often I will try to point the monitors away from me a little bit, so they're not
Yeah.
directly at me if there even are monitors.
I mean, it's not a problem if you're using in-ears, right?
Yeah, I don't have those, so I haven't tried that yet.
You should maybe get some. They're actually really good. I've got
Yeah.
these ones. Um, these are the Shure in-ears,
Hmm.
and they weren't too expensive. I think they were maybe like 200 Canadian
Hmm.
or something like that. And they're basically earplugs and headphones at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's great. You can't
Right.
hear everything else. It's reverberating around and stuff.
Right.
You can just hear your performance.
Protect your hearing a little bit too.
Yeah, and protect your hearing as long
Yeah.
as you don't crank it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But yeah, I used to use like the in-ears when I was doing the talkbox thing, and yeah. But yeah, maybe that's something to think about. Maybe I just need like a Shure 58
Yeah,
mic.
that's a big
'Cause-
important factor. Because if you do anything that picks up all kinds of noise, I kind of could hear your conversation before when you were out of the room. It's picking that
Wow.
up. Like a 58 probably won't do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So maybe this microphone is just not suited for a live environment. This is a
it wants to,
Electro Voice RE20.
yeah, it wants to be in a quiet studio, radio
Yeah.
broadcasting.
Yeah. This is Professor Groove. Welcome back to We Funk Radio.
We're very glad to have you here today. This one too, I'm sure would be the same way. Um,
Right.
so
Well, mistakes were made, lessons were learned.
yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. Um,
So when it comes to like the output of your microphone, are you sending that into Ableton using a sound card, and then
yeah,
you're using the gates in within Ableton
right.
and
Yeah,
EQs within Ableton? Yeah,
yeah. I
that's
do it.
probably the way to go. Hey,
I do it all in there, and I just give a left and a right to the
yeah.
sound people. Just
What kind of sound card do you use on stage there?
I'm currently using a Focusrite Scarlett 6i6, I think it
Yeah,
is.
the 6i6.
I was
I
in love with my Motu Ultralight MK2 for a long time, but
Yeah,
Firewire, it kind of
yeah. The new AVB ones are really good. That's what I have over here. But I actually also have a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2.
uh-huh.
And I just bought that one so that it makes recording YouTube videos easier.
Hmm.
This might blow your mind actually, because I was telling some other guys at Ableton Loop about this. But I'm assuming you use like OBS to record your videos, right?
I use ScreenFlow, but I've done like
Screenplay,
for some
similar
live
thing.
streaming OBS.
Yeah. So in OBS, you can add like multiple audio sources.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I couldn't access the separate inputs and outputs of my Motu.
Hmm.
So I could only get a overall mix of, the sound coming out of Ableton and my voice. And then there's the problem of the speakers playing into the microphone, and then you get this weird doubling kind of room sound. And I avoided that by just turning my speakers down a bit and having a gate on the microphone with the threshold quite high. But I ended up buying this Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, pretty cheap, pretty easy to use. And what I'm doing is sending an output from my Motu, which is my microphone,
Hmm.
and then that goes onto the input of the Scarlett and picked up by OBS. And then within OBS, um, the second auxiliary input is just the mix from my Motu, and the microphone is down in the mix on the Motu. So essentially, I have two different audio channels: the Focusrite and the Motu. Microphone and Ableton. And then the clever thing that I did within OBS, you can create a filter on the audio, and there's a sidechain option. So I sidechain my vocals so that whenever something is being played out of Ableton, it sidechains my microphone. My microphone cuts out and doesn't record anything.
Mm.
And then when I drag the MP4 into my editing software, it's the video and then two stereo audio channels, one microphone, one Ableton, and I can DS and blah, blah, blah.
Nice.
So it's super nice, dude.
Yeah, that's some audio interface trickery right there.
Yeah, just sending the output of one into the other.
Yeah.
My thinking was also like, if I ever end up doing this talkbox thing again, it's too much of a pain in the butt to take my Motu out because it's my only sound card. I have to unplug everything
Hmm.
for a gig, and then when I get home, I got to plug
I
everything
know.
back in again. So I might end up just using the Focusrite if it has enough. If it's got enough inputs and outputs, I'm not even sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling. I've got my kind of live setup behind me, sort of. It's a little bit taken apart here, and it's also got. Well, no, this isn't that. This is just some synths I got here. Whoops.
Oh yeah,
But I've set up the live portion so it's like totally modular, where I can just pick I bring the table with me usually.
oh wow,
It's a nice like countertop height table. Um, I just can't play on these like little tables where you're like hunched over, and
oh yeah,
um, So I can just unplug the electric, unplug it from my PA, and then I'm just good to go. And then I can just slide it back in, and it's
Nice.
nice.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
it's
It's like
still
a
a
like a
little,
big console that you just like remove and place back in.
yeah. I mean, there's still I got to disconnect like the controllers and stuff, but it's made it a lot. It's made me a lot more willing to want to play out and to like
Yeah.
want to take things apart, because I've found that like in the past it was like you said, it's like, oh, this stuff I got on hook and then I got to set it back up, and it's
Yeah.
inevitably like something gets the short end of the stick. Like either I don't want to play
Yeah.
out or I don't want to set things up to do it at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you get home from a gig and you're tired and you don't end up plugging your sound card in for a couple days.
Yep.
Yeah, I try to just leave everything here set up the way it is. I don't take my turntables or mixer anywhere. Um, Sometimes I take my mixer somewhere, but very rarely. I just throw my laptop in a backpack,
Hmm.
and then the various like cables and stuff I need, and I'm off. And like my laptop is only for DJing. My computer, my PC here is for everything else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So how do you deal with like transporting files and stuff? Is that like an issue ever?
It's super easy. I
Yeah.
just have like I've got a pro Dropbox account,
Hmm.
which gives me like 1 terabyte of hard drive space. And so when I'm rendering out a set, um, I've got all the Lego blocks all ready to go, WAV files.
Like
I just save them in my Dropbox, and then when I open my laptop, drop already seen, and they're already on my laptop, and then I just kind of drag them into iTunes, and then Serato accesses the iTunes um, playlist,
hmm.
and then that's it. I just make a folder, put all the files in, and we're done.
Nice.
Set my cue points up, and ready to go.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So then you can travel pretty light. It's not too many
yeah,
bags or
totally,
cases or anything.
totally. Like, there's sometimes I go off to play just like a weekend, one show in a city or somewhere. I won't even take a suitcase. I'll just like, I've actually got, um, so when I was making my fanny packs, I got a
Nice.
few prototypes made up and sent to me. And this was the first one they sent me. This is a fanny pack. Like, look at the size of this thing.
Yeah, that's pro.
It's huge. It's way too big. So I ended up just like cutting off the straps, and now I use it. I just like stuff a couple of t-shirts and some underwear in there, and then that goes in the bottom of my bag. And then I have a second one of these for like my toothbrush and stuff.
Hmm.
And then it's just like my laptop power cable, some Serato records, needles, headphones, cables,
Yeah, that's
and I'll
nice.
just take my backpack. Easy.
Yeah, then you're not even checking luggage then.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a big consideration in like my whole setup. Um, is that I can carry everything in one shot. I don't think it's quite as compact as yours, but I can fit, the couple controllers I bring, the laptop within 2 bags, a backpack, and then sort of like a duffel bag, and
Yeah.
then I carry my table usually. um, but a lot of times
One trip.
it's one trip because I'll often be, say, going out to like Brooklyn to play,
Hmm.
and parking is atrocious anywhere in New York City. So
Yeah.
you might park half a mile away from where you got to play, and I don't want to and often I'm going alone. I don't want to have to park, leave my stuff in the car for one, and then bring half of it to the club, leave that stuff unattended somewhere,
Yeah. And then go back to the car,
and
and
half an
yeah,
hour anything could happen. So
totally.
for those reasons, for not having to make 20 trips to the car and also not having to leave my stuff alone. And
Yeah,
it's
man.
a nice limitation too, honestly, because I don't know if I would know where to stop, because there's like all this gear I could bring out and you get carried
Just end
away.
up looking like Richard Devine, rolling
Yeah.
up with like
Oof.
a 12U case.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I that. And then there's all that stress of setting up later, like you said, like
Yeah.
often there's not a sound check really, and you're kind of just setting up before the person before
Yeah.
you's done.
I think like as you like get more popular or whatever with your gigs and stuff, there's a little bit more of a professionalism in there. But
Yeah,
there's even like I play I'll play two sets, and the level of preparedness and professionalism is wildly different between those two sets.
hmm
Like one set, they'll be like, here's your trailer, we'll pick you up for dinner at this time, and sound check is at 9 p.m. And you're like, sweet. And then there's like an envelope with your fee in it, like ahead of time and all that. Versus like, yeah, you're staying on my couch, and like the boys are coming over and we're cooking wings, and like the after party is here as well, but you're sleeping on that couch. So,
yeah,
like it's just,
right.
and then like the guy's like, oh, how much did I owe you again? And he's like, opens up his wallet or something. And it's just like, it's two different, completely different shows. And like
Sure.
the one show will just have like this perfect DJ desk and everything's laid out, and there's a sound guy with like an earpiece and shit. And the other one is just like, I think I've got a USB cable at home. Let me just drive back. And,
Yeah, right.
you know, so you got to kind of be like prepared for both situations.
I totally agree, and
Yeah.
it makes your life a lot easier, and that's
Yeah.
why I've tried to, for one, get better at like setting my stuff up. Like that is the one good thing I guess about like putting your stuff back in and setting it back up when you get home. But
Yeah.
um, because a lot of times it's like you're setting up on the side 10 minutes before you have to go on,
Yeah,
and
totally, man. Yeah,
so
there's always
want to be
that.
ready for that.
That's actually one of the things that stresses me out is like there's a desk and there's only enough room for one person's gear.
Yeah.
And then the switchover is like there has to be no break in music almost.
hmm
So how do you even,
Yeah.
and but yeah, like remembering what plugs go into where, like I drew a diagram uh of my setup with the talk box thing in my diary here. Um
Nice. I have a lot of
yeah.
drawings of setups too. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. It's like what to what was that? There we go.
Yeah,
What to
nice.
plug in where and what goes
Yeah,
where and stuff.
that's
And
smart.
I used to bring this book with me. I'd put it on the table, and then I'd be like, okay, the output to the talk box, and that's front of house. And I drew little diagrams.
Hmm.
Yeah, you got to be prepared, right?
Well, especially too because it's not like you're even doing it in the like quiet of your own home. That's a crazy night. There's someone
Yeah.
running around spilling beer on you, and the person before you didn't get right off. They decided to go talk to the crowd, and they left all their stuff there.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
20,000 other variables that you have to like now deal with besides your own nerves.
Yeah. You got to
Yeah.
bring a headlamp, dude.
Mm.
Headlamps. It's always good.
Yeah, my father was using one of those the other day, and I was like, I need one of those, like,
Yeah, they're the bomb, man. I use mine all the time.
even for walking my dogs.
Like right here, and it's just like
Yeah.
I think it's kind of out of batteries right now, but yeah, whenever I have to get under my desk to like plug something in,
hmm
my girlfriend laughs at me. She's like, "You look like a coal miner or something."
Right.
Like I'm digging for gold.
Yeah. Maybe not the most fashionable thing.
No,
Someone will popularize it though, and it'll be
yeah,
cool.
they're like wetsuits. No one looks sexy in a wetsuit.
But you're glad you have one when you need one.
True,
That's
true.
that's how I wear my life jacket if I go out on a kayak that I've got recently. It's like I know it's dorky, but if I need this thing, I'm gonna be really happy that I have it.
Yeah, yeah. You can't look cool if you're drowning at the bottom of the ocean.
No, no. You look a lot cooler floating in your life jacket.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Oh man, so you're heading out on the road. Any plans after that? What's next for you, sir?
Well, next, um, I what the hell am I doing next? I just kind of take it 1 month at a time, or less than that usually. What am I doing next? Looks like I have a couple of shows in Canada at the beginning of February. Um, Mid January, after I get home from Australia, I'm doing a talk at Nimbus Music School, which is a music production school here in Vancouver. So that should be kind of
Nice.
fun. I don't often do live tutorials and stuff like that, like talks in
Yeah.
front of an actual crowd. So I'm excited about that. Get some one-on-one like kind of questions and interact with the people.
Yeah.
Should be cool.
I get more nervous for that kind of stuff than I do for performances, actually.
Really?
I do. Because there's always like when you're performing, you're doing your thing and like your knowledge isn't really on on display or at question.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I always worry that if I'm gonna be doing like some sort of presentation or demonstration, like
You're a
there's
school teacher, dude.
oh I know, but they're 14 years old and it's English and I know more than them about it. When I go out to
Right.
this stuff, a lot of times, and it happens. I teach a class for Berkeley online too, and sometimes like there are often really there are people that have way more knowledge about various things in music than I do. I just happen to be the guy that knows Ableton, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little more intimidating for me like that.
Hmm. It
Just
doesn't seem to bother me. I'm like totally comfortable just showing stuff and talking about stuff.
mm,
Um yeah, I
yeah,
want to do stuff like that really. I was talking to someone that works at SAE in Vancouver,
uh-huh,
and I might try and get a little presentation going on there. And I think it would be cool if I started like when I'm on tour, like instead of just doing the gig, maybe do like a workshop or something as well.
yeah,
Um, because some people are just more interested in learning something rather than dancing and drinking and picking up chicks or whatever.
uh-huh, yeah. Well,
So
I've
yeah,
never had that experience where someone called me out, and I think part of it's my approach where I don't pretend to know everything, and
yeah,
the
yeah.
same
I
thing as a
mean,
school teacher too. You know, I'm
yeah,
happy to say I
you
don't
can
know.
treat it like a learning experience. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, like tell me about it.
right. Yeah,
Um, I mean, you get the same thing on YouTube. People
sure.
comment stuff on YouTube, and quite often they're totally unraveling your entire point with like um information that is completely the opposite of what you're telling people. And you know
Mm,
sometimes you just gotta be like, okay, that's an interesting point of view or whatever.
yeah.
Or that's because, like, I mean, when it comes to music and production, there's like guidelines and rules of thumb and stuff, but there really isn't any solid rules, you know, like, because music is so subjective. Listen to music and you could like it, I could hate it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So uh, you can't really say shit. You
Yes.
can. I mean, the comments that I always get are when I try to talk about music theory, and never have pretended to be an expert on musical theory. Um, I try my best. I really try to understand like chord progressions and scales and things like that. And I know how to construct seventh chords and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But yeah, some some people come in and they're just clearly just graduated from the most prestigious classical music theory training program in the world, and they just want to tell you you're wrong, and they usually write about it too.
Mm.
So
Maybe they earned that.
just got to treat it as a learning experience, right? Like, okay, this guy definitely knows more than me. I'll listen to what he has to say and
Yeah.
stuff. The first instinct though is always like kind of like a defensive
Yeah.
instinct, but more often than not, when people are typing something they don't actually mean to like um tell you that you know nothing, bro.
Yeah.
They just want to like also share their knowledge in their own way. Yeah.
Yeah, and having that kind of open-minded attitude sort of shields you from that anyway, because then,
Yeah.
you know,
I've had some comments. It's so weird. Like you get 1,000 comments, and then one comment will be like, "You suck," and that's the only comment
that's the only
that
one
you
you
like
hear.
think about, and you're just
Right.
like, "Oh man, maybe I do suck," you know. But yeah. So I think one of the talks at Ableton Loop was talking about like how if you spent the same amount of energy thinking about the negative comments as you do with the positive ones, like really dwell on the positive comments and just be like,
Mm.
man, like I'm really helping this person and I've opened their eyes and blah blah blah. Then maybe we'll be less susceptible to an emotional response from an
Yeah.
angry YouTube comment.
Yeah, well, we're all vulnerable, I guess, but you're right, like focusing on the good ones is smart.
Mm,
I have a little folder in my email that's like nice emails, like people just send them along, and it's
that's a
it's
good idea.
yeah, it's nice to like once in a while if I ever need it, just read one.
Yeah.
Be like,
If
"Oh,
you ever like feel like you're off the track, just bring yourself
yeah.
back kind of thing. Like, this is
Yeah.
my goal. This is why I do this.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
shit, this person thinks I helped them a little. That's great."
Yeah.
So,
But what I wanted to say as well is a lot of the time you get these angry comments calling you out for saying something wrong or saying like that sounds like shit or something like that. A lot of the time they they kind of forget that you're an actual person as well.
right.
And so I'll just write to them and be like, "Hey man, sorry you didn't like the video. How would you do you have any suggestions to make it sound less like shit or whatever?" Like I try to, like tell me more about what's wrong with the video and let's talk about it. And like every time I reach out to those kinds of people, they always write back and say like, "Hey, I didn't mean to be a dick, but
Yeah.
you know, I just thought I just wanted to explain this or that." And yeah.
Well, and
So,
imagine if you would have fought that fire with more fire, where that would have went. It just
yeah, totally.
my
So,
favorite example in my experience with this kind of stuff is someone wrote me this email, and it was harsh and tore me apart. Everything you could think about, and it ended with an insult I've never heard before. Go
oh,
fuck your
what's this?
dad.
Go fuck your dad.
Go fuck your dad. I'm like, whoa, you know. So I did exactly what you did. I was like, wow. I'm like, you know, I'm upset that you didn't like the video or whatever it was, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to cause problems. I want to help, and if there's anything you think that might, and the response was like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't even
Yeah.
think you were gonna read this. I was having a bad day, and I was
So
mad. I
exactly,
was,
right? Just
yeah, I was
having a
mad you
bad
had more
day.
subscribers than me, and you're really doing cool stuff, and I actually like you." It was like really positive all of a sudden, and
Yeah, it's weird like that. I mean, yeah, you just have to like give people the benefit of the doubt and just be like, "Hey, maybe this person is writing a comment that's very uncharacteristic of them.
yeah,
And maybe they are just having a bad day. Who knows? Maybe their girlfriend broke up with them. Maybe some other stuff is going on. Maybe
yep,
it's like, they think you deserve less subscribers or something. Who knows what
yeah,
it is? Jealousy or something like that. Um, so yeah, you just have to sometimes just listening and talking to them and stuff.
hmm yeah.
It's
It's
weird.
true. I've had it happen at my job, at school. Kids sometimes curse you out once in a while.
True.
And rather
True.
than like, "That's it, you know what I could do? I'm gonna send you here,"
Yeah.
but
I'm
just
gonna end your life.
yeah, this will be on your permanent record. But sometimes, like you said, they just need to be heard. And
Yeah.
I've
It-
kind of had like nice relationships with students form out of that, where,
Totally.
wow,
Right.
wow, you're the only teacher that ever like listened to me and didn't just yell at me, you know,
Yeah.
and that's a cool thing. It's
Yeah, for
worth getting
sure.
cursed out for.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Hey, maybe that's a nice place to end, just be nice to people.
Yeah. Be excellent to each other.
Yeah, Bill and Ted, right? Be excellent to
Yeah.
each other. Cool, man. So Slynk.net is definitely one of the hubs of your work. Where else do you think people should go? YouTube?
Yeah. Go to my YouTube channel and look at the Ableton tutorials that I have up there. If you're an advanced to intermediate user of Ableton, you kind of know your way around and you just want to like deepen your knowledge of stuff, then I would suggest checking out my channel.
Mm,
I don't really have any like basic tutorials. Um, but for me, when it comes to like learning something, I like to just jump in the deep end, man.
yeah.
And just like right now, I'm actually kind of I got all inspired from Loop and I'm like messing around with Max for Life. And I have like a small amount of programming background. Like in high school, I did some programming. I made a little app that I remember making an app and it was like a simulated chat program, except you were chatting to an AI. And anytime you would type something, it would randomly pick a delay between X and Y time. And then it would randomly choose a response. And all the responses were things that one of my friends said, like dumb things that one of my friends has
Uh-huh.
said over the years. I'd like write them down and then add them to the program.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I'm kind of diving into that world and I'm just looking for like the most advanced tutorials that I can find. And I'm just following along and kind of like filling in the basic parts of the knowledge as
Mm.
I go. That's my way of learning anyways. So I've considered doing have you ever done like a zero to hero kind of basic Ableton course?
No, not really. In fact, like one of the courses I did was like live performance stuff, and I gave it a like the big asterisk, like some knowledge required.
Yeah.
And that was in a way was sort of like the selling point too. Like I'm not gonna take you from zero. I'll assume you kind of know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Um, but I I,
I
he-
kind of
I hear you on that. Like sometimes getting deep on one thing kind of opens your eyes to the other things and how they work too.
yeah. And when you think about it, like if if you if you suddenly had no knowledge of Ableton or music production and then you were interested in it, I feel like you would have bought the program and tried a couple of things yourself already and at least like maybe read the manual or just kind of like stumbled your way through trial and error to get yourself to a point where you kind of know
Hmm.
something, right? I don't I don't think there's many people out there that are just like, I'm gonna buy Ableton and then I'll buy this beginner course and then I'll do it like that
Yeah,
from start to finish, you know?
yeah. That's
That's
probably.
not how I work anyway. I'm more
I,
of a like DIY kind of dude that just sort of figures it out.
Yeah, I think there's a fiddling phase, where you pick up on some little things.
Yeah.
I see that a lot with people. Like even when I know it's their first time opening it, I might show them a little thing or two that'll just give them a sound and something to play with. But then they
Yeah.
kind of like to just have a little exploration time,
Mm,
and
true.
you feel it out with depending on the individual. But
I mean,
I,
Ableton's very user friendly. It's quite obvious to see
yeah,
and hear what's happening, right?
and I
And just
think.
like by getting in there and turning
Mhm.
knobs and dragging stuff to different things, you learn so much. Like that's how I learned, you
Yeah.
know?
I think the built-in lessons in live and even on their site, there's a lot of like great short videos. I kind of just
Yeah.
refer people to that. I don't think there's a need for me to redo those videos because
Yeah, for
they're well
sure.
done and they're to the point and
Yeah.
you know
Anyway, I've thought about doing some beginner lessons, but that just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, well, that's that too, right? I mean, you have to sort of, and that's something I'm like really working on myself is focusing on like the kind of work that I find value in, and other people find value too. But if I'm gonna do that, that'll feel a little more like work.
Yeah.
Whereas if like kind of like you said, where you're sort of learning something also as you're teaching it, that's
Right.
fun, and there's another reward for that besides. So if no one watches it, at least I got that out of it.
Yeah. And if you forget it, you can watch your own video.
There you go. When I was smarter, when I knew
I've
better.
totally like watched my own videos. Like, how did I do that again?
That's funny.
Yeah, totally. I'm planning another video soon actually about some of the things that I was talking to about with people at Ableton Loop. I don't want to give any spoilers, but yeah, and it's a subject that I don't know very much about. And I've over the past couple of weeks, I've been asking people, reading stuff, and just
Mm.
learning it better myself. And then I'm going to consolidate all that knowledge that I have collected into a video, which makes it easy for everyone to understand and for myself to understand. You
Nice.
know, I really see it as kind of like just a way to collect your thoughts on a subject, come to some kind of conclusion, and then produce the video. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's value to that. It's your own like version of like synthesizing that material, processing it in your
Yeah.
own mind, and then your take. And um,
If people are listening or watching to this, I would recommend kind of like if you're trying to learn something in Ableton, kind of set yourself a little goal that you're going to make a video about it.
hmm,
And yeah, like I would highly recommend teaching something because it makes you learn it better yourself for sure. Even if you get 5 views and 1 subscriber, it doesn't matter, you know.
yeah, for
It's kind of
sure.
like a you could treat it almost like a diary of your own discoveries and knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
I've often wished I had a like list of the things I've learned to do, like a notebook of the bag of tricks or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because, like you said, you do forget things, and sometimes you need to go back.
Yeah,
And
you definitely need to like stay consistent with working in Ableton because if you do take a couple months off, suddenly those little tricks and little bags of ideas and things just slip away and you end up coming back into Ableton like I got no ideas. I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah, totally.
It's
I
like an
get that.
instrument,
Yeah,
man. Like you have to practice your instrument and Ableton is in a sense an instrument, but
yeah. It
even just
turns.
remembering shortcut keys and stuff.
I agree totally. And sometimes when I feel stuck, like this happened to me just the other day, I kind of sat down to make music. I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, I don't know how to do anything. Like, what am I gonna do
Yeah.
here? And it took sort of maybe listening to some music and then thinking about like techniques and like, oh, let me fool around with that. And then next thing you
Mhm.
know, you're in it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally.
Well, listen, man, I want to be respectful of your time. And it's been really great talking to you.
No problem, man.
Happy we ran
It's been
into each
fun.
other and got some time to do this. And everybody should definitely check out your work, slynk.net. Go to YouTube, check out some of these videos, and a lot of advanced like septuplet swing. Like, come on, like how much like deeper and you know complicated and strange could that get? Like, there's not too much about that out there, and you're doing a nice job like covering that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And the music
Yeah,
is
check them
great.
out.
Next party you have, put on some Slynk, and you'll be having a good time.
For
Hmm.
sure. All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for listening, everybody, and
yeah, thanks for listening.
have a great day.
Peace.